Hey guys, I'm going to talk about my advice, my opinions on what the best way is to transition into a plant-based diet. Now, there are several things that you have to consider before you make the transition into a plant-based diet. The biggest mistake, the mistake I made when I went plant-based in 2015 is I did not do any research. I was under eating, I wasn't getting enough protein, and I lost a lot of weight, but I lost a lot of muscle as well. And I thought you can't build muscle on a vegan diet, a plant-based diet. It's just impossible. I thought you had to eat meat to build muscle. What I learned is it was all my fault. It was my mistakes. And there wasn't enough information back then. There wasn't enough plant-based bodybuilders back then for me to follow. But everything's changed. In the last 5 years, everything has changed. So the number one thing that I recommend before you go plant-based is to do your research. Do your own research. Make sure you know what foods you're going to eat to get the nutrients that you need. Biggest concern for people who want to go plant-based is supplements, is the nutrients that they need. They worry that they can't get it from plant-based diet. And now, I just want to start off by saying there's nothing you can get from meat that you cannot get from plants. Supplements that I recommend you guys take are B12, vitamin D, DHA omega-3, and glucosamine. So these are the main supplements that I recommend that you have to take. And I'm sure you can get these supplements from foods, but to make sure you're getting an adequate amount of nutrients, you have to make sure you supplement them. You can get B12. So B12 you can get from nuts, you can get it from nutritional yeast, you can get it from all kinds of foods, but to get adequate amount of B12, you have to make sure you supplement them. And a lot of people say B12, you get B12 from meat, so obviously you can't get it from a plant-based diet, which is, they point to that as a fact to try and disprove a plant-based diet is healthy. But the fact is, more often than not, B12 is actually injected in the animals itself, so they're still getting it from supplements. When you're transitioning to a plant-based diet, make sure you don't jump straight into it. And some people, you look at the slaughterhouse footage and you think about the animals and you just want to jump straight into it. But what happens is you are going to fail because you need time for your body to adapt to new kinds of foods, the healthier, fiber-rich, whole foods that you're going to introduce in your diet. You need your body some time to adapt to those foods. And another thing is, veganism is not a diet. It is a moral stance. So once you go vegan, you can still eat junk food. You can still be really unhealthy on a vegan diet. You can still be as unhealthy as you are on a meat diet if you're consuming your refined oils such as coconut oil, palm oil, all these processed foods. So make sure, if you want to be healthy on a vegan diet, I recommend a whole foods plant-based diet. So you have your foods like legumes, you have your nuts, whole grains, seeds, herbs and spices. Make sure you opt for whole food plant-based instead of your processed, your mock meat, your refined foods, processed foods, because those foods will raise your risk of heart disease just as much as meat will. And there's only one reason you should go vegan. That is for the animals. You don't go vegan for health reasons. You don't go vegan for all these other reasons. Those are benefits of a vegan diet. But you have to first and more do it for animals. Saying that, when you start your transition into a plant-based diet, I recommend slowly introducing foods into your diet. So I would say give yourself 2 weeks time to slowly transition into a plant-based diet. And every day introduce one plant-based meal, and then the next day add in another plant-based meal, and the next day add in another plant-based meal, and eventually you're going to be full plant-based. And make sure you choose the right foods. So for example, chickpeas, lentils, your whole grains, there's so many options to choose from that are healthy. Slowly introduce them. I don't want you to jump straight into it because you need time for your body to adapt. And you're not going to have a fun time if you jump straight into so much fiber rich whole foods. So give your body some time to adapt to a whole foods plant-based. And even if you are vegan right now, do not jump straight into a whole foods plant-based diet. Give your body some time to adjust. Another thing that I would say is surround yourself with vegan people, surround yourself with plant-based people, follow plant-based Instagram pages, Facebook pages, join your local vegan Facebook groups. I know for me personally, there's a page called Adelaide Vegans, and I go on that page pretty much every day because I'm always searching for new restaurants. I'm always searching for new recipes, new vegan things in my area. So join your local vegan community, and that's really going to motivate you to stay on track with your plant-based vegan lifestyle. Another thing you want to do is to make sure your fridge is always stocked with plant-based foods that you can forward to. If you are a big meat eater, my personal recommendation is to stay away from your mock meat. Stay away from the mock meat area of your grocery store, because usually these foods are filled with processed, like it's heavily processed, and it's not good for you, and it's really expensive. So that gives you incentive to stay away from those foods. If you're into meat, I would say look into nut meat. Nut meat is amazing. It is a really healthy source of food, and you can add it as mince. You can make meatloaf. You can make all sorts of vegan meat foods with nut meat. Not to mention it's a great source of protein. It's a great source of zinc, iron, and vitamin B12. So nut meat is a great option if you are a big meat eater and you want to make the transition. So slowly introduce foods like this in your first week of switching and see how your body responds. And if you need more time, take more time. But I would say make the transition as soon as possible. And if you're into cheese, you have your dairy-free cheese options. There are countless now, and you can see which ones you like, which ones you don't. I know I like some, I don't like other ones. But honestly, one of the natural sources of the cheesy flavor that I would recommend is nutritional yeast. Now, nutritional yeast is really healthy. It has B12, it's loaded with nutrients, and it gives a cheesy, nutty flavor that you can add to any foods, like pasta. You can use it to make cashew nut cheese. You can use it to make all sorts of different cheesy recipes. And that brings me to our next point. You can make your own cheese at home. So just a quick Google search on cashew nut cheese. There are so many recipes out there, so many cheesy recipes. You can make cheese from tofu, you can make cheese from all sorts of things. And that's another big misconception that I hear, is that you're restrictive on a plant-based diet. It is the opposite. I was restrictive when I was eating meat, because when I was eating meat, I was eating chicken or meat 6 times a day, and I had to structure my whole meal around meat, and I felt like I was restricted because I was really restrictive with my calories. And when you're structuring your whole meal around meat, you can't be creative. Your protein source is just meat. You have no room to add in carbs, your fat, because it takes up such a large chunk of your meal. However, on a plant-based food, you have so many things. You can experiment with so many foods, and I love experimenting with different foods each time. You're not restrictive. There are so many YouTubers out there that have amazing recipes, amazing vegan recipes that you can follow, that are cheap, that are easy, that are quick. And I'll link some of them down below, so check those channels out. And I personally follow those channels. I make a lot of recipes using those channels. So you don't need meat or dairy to be fit, to be healthy. You don't need it for there's no excuse, there's no reason to eat meat and dairy in 2020. Hope you guys make the transition as soon as possible, and if you guys have any questions about it, please let me know in the comments down below. I would be more than happy to help, and I hope you guys make a swift but fast transition into this lifestyle, this moral stance, because animals don't have to needlessly suffer just because we like meat or dairy. So think about that. I'll see you guys in my next video.